In the last video for this chapter, we're going to cover hurricanes. We're going to talk about where they form, how they form, and what type of destruction they bring once they reach land. Since you're taking classes in Florida, you are probably familiar at least a little bit with hurricanes. But hurricanes are the most violent storms on our planet. And a lot of that deals with how large they are in size and how long they last. Our other intense storms might last for a few minutes, maybe hours, but our hurricanes can last for days or weeks. But hurricanes only form in specific areas. They only can form over an ocean. They cannot form over land. And that ocean water needs to be warm. It needs to be found in a tropical area so that it has the warmth or energy to form. But once our hurricane has formed, it's going to be a really intense center of low pressure. So here we're going to have that cyclonic circulation. The air is going to be rotating in towards that low pressure center in an anti-clockwise pattern. So in order to be actually categorized as a hurricane, it needs to have two things. It needs a wind speed that's over 74 miles per hour, and it needs to be a rotating cyclonic circulation. So it needs to have high winds that are above 74 miles per hour, but it also needs to be rotating in a counterclockwise circulation with a low pressure center. And generally, we're going to see that our hurricanes form during a specific time of the year where the oceans are the warmest. Our hurricane speeds are going to reach over 250 miles per hour. And while they're still out over the ocean, they're capable of creating really tall waves that can be over 50 feet in height. But depending on where we are in our different cultures, we're going to call these massive storms different names. Here in the United States, we call them hurricanes. If we lived in the Western Pacific, around Asia, we would call them typhoons. If we lived in India, we would call them cyclones. And we're going to see that the most common large storm like this are going to be our typhoons that occur in the North Pacific. When we're looking at our hurricanes, there are going to be several different parts. We might have heard about the eye of the storm, but surrounding the eye is what's called the eye wall. It's going to be close to the center, but not the exact center of our hurricane. Within the eye wall, this is going to be a really thick wall of cumulonimbus clouds that are spinning in that convective activity, where they are rising air moving upwards through our atmosphere in this cyclonic pattern. With our eye wall, this is going to be where the most intense rotation is occurring. So here we're going to have the greatest wind speeds as well as the heaviest rainfall. But in the middle of our eye wall is the eye of the hurricane itself. This is the very center of the hurricane. But in comparison to how huge a hurricane is in size, the eye is a very small part of it. It's only about 10 to 12 miles in width. But during the eye of the storm, when it passes over you, it's really kind of freaky. Here we're going to have all forms of precipitation stop. The wind is going to subside and calm down. The air is going to start descending. The air is going to heat up as well. It's going to be a really warm part, and it's going to be totally calm. So when the eye wall is here, when the eye is here, we just experienced one of the eye walls, the most intense precipitation and wind. Now we're in the eye of the storm where there's no wind, no precipitation. But it's dangerous to go outside during the eye of the storm because one eye wall has passed over. That means that another eye wall is quickly approaching when you could unexpectedly be hit yet again by the most intense part of the storm if you go outside during the eye. Hurricanes get all of their energy from that warm ocean water that they form in. So we're going to see that they diminish in intensity or get smaller and weaker either as they start moving onto land. When we cut them off from that warm water, they're quickly going to start losing their punch. They're going to go from a category 5 to a category 3 within just a few hundred miles. But we can also see that our hurricanes can diminish in intensity if they move from that warm ocean water into cold ocean water. Because they're getting their energy from the heat, when it moves into cold waters, it's going to kill off that storm quickly as well. And if we have our higher atmospheric airflow moving in a different direction, it can kill off the storm too. We'll see that hurricanes can cause different amounts of destructions in different areas. The most important thing that determines exactly how much damage a hurricane can cause is the strength of the storm. And in order to measure the strength and the overall damage, we use the Saffir-Simpson scale. And this is going to rank the intensities of our hurricanes from a category 1 to a category 5. Where category 1 is minimal damage with lower winds, lower storm surge. And a category 5 is catastrophic damage with winds over 250 kilometers per hour and more than 15 feet of storm surge. But there are other factors that affect how much damage happens in addition to the intensity of the storm. Another really important factor is going to be the size and the population of the area where this hurricane made landfall. If we're in an area that's more populated, it's going to do more damage because there's more people and more buildings within that area. But the shape of the seafloor near the beach is also going to be important. We'll see that if it is gently sloping, that hurricane is going to be able to do more damage. With the higher category hurricanes, they can be absolutely catastrophic in the damage that they bring, and they can wipe out entire communities in just a single storm. But we're going to see that the part of a hurricane that causes the most destruction is called storm surge. This is where it's bringing in this huge dome of water that can be miles wide from the oceans, and it's going to completely cover the land wherever that hurricane makes landfall. So it's literally covering the land in miles of ocean water. This is the most destructive part of our hurricane. But our hurricanes can also have those 300 mile per hour winds that are producing a lot of damage, and flooding because we can be dealing with days of endless rainfall as well. One of the really good things about hurricanes, though, is how well we can track them. We're capable of using satellites and different types of weather forecasting to see where these tropical storms and tropical depressions are forming, and we can actually figure out where they're going to move into the future. So if we can look at our cone, this forecast, we can see the area that it's likely that our tornado can move in. It's typically shown that the hurricane is going to move directly through the middle, but this cone is actually showing us that it could move anywhere within the slightly shaded area. But based on the current speed of the hurricane, it's also going to allow us to know where it might be on different days and different hours as it starts moving towards different areas.